Incineroar, Fluttermane, Amoonguss. There are Pokemon you know are strong, but in Scarlet and Violet there have been many others that managed to win tournaments despite not being part of the established meta. For example, in Regulation B, Baxcalibur managed to win the 2023 Oceania International Championships under Gavin Michaels, without being much of a meta threat at all. This Baxcalibur used Dragon Fang Glaive Rush to one-shot Iron Bundle, one of the most common Pokemon at that tournament. It could also use its ice moves to threaten a KO onto Amoonguss, Dragonite, or other ice-weak Pokemon. Now, Baxcalibur was not exactly a niche Pokemon in Regulation A, the previous regulation. It saw pretty good usage and even won a regional over there. So why am I only talking about its Reg B win if it was good before? Well, that's because this video is going to feature two types of niche Pokemon. One, Pokemon that were niche in that specific format that they happened to win in, but maybe saw some usage in a prior generation or different format. And two, Pokemon that are niche in general, never seeing much success ever since they were introduced. Also, niche is not an exact category of Pokemon, so determining which ones are niche is not an exact science. You might see some Pokemon that you think had a little too much usage to be considered niche, and this video might omit some winners that you think are niche. But the main objective of this video is to highlight Pokemon that managed to do well despite the established meta not being very friendly to them and how exactly they managed to do it, rather than distill what exactly qualifies as niche. Real quick, if you could please like the video and hype the video, both of those things really help me out a lot. But for now, let's keep talking Regulation B, which for context was the format in Scarlet and Violet which introduced the Paradox Pokemon into the competitive scene. Screamtail managed to win the 2023 Orlando Regional on a team piloted by Wolf Blick, despite seeing no recorded tournament usage prior to its win. Screamtail served as a Perish Song setter that would use its bulk and disable to keep itself and Gothitelle standing until the Perish counter ticked down. Iron Jugulus won the 2023 Bochum Regionals under Marcus Hamann. This Jugulus was not meant to do a ton of damage, but rather set up Tailwind, sometimes multiple times in a single game, temper strong special attackers with Snarl, and do solid but not overwhelming damage with Air Slash into flying weak Pokemon like Amoonguss, Great Tusk, or Brute Bonnet. Lastly, for Reg B, Base Form Lilligant won the Vancouver Regional on a Sun team under Abdullah Mohyuddin. Lilligant used Chlorophyll to outspeed Speed Booster Iron Bundle and Fluttermane and threaten KOs with Leaf Storm into Bundle, even at -2 special attack. Chlorophyll Lilligant also pairs extremely well with Torkoal, as Lilligant can use After You to let Torkoal take advantage of its boosted speed and then nuke the field with Eruption. Regulation C introduced the Treasures of Ruin into the format, and man, would 3 of them turn out to be good. Chi Yu and Chien Pao ended up being relevant in every format they have been legal in since, and Ting Lu shined heavily in this format, sparking up some heated discussion with its use of Fissure. Alongside Ting Lu, Orthworm managed to win not one but 2 regionals, Sao Paulo under Joaquin Salnero and Torino under Nico Davide Cognetta. Orthworm would set up a substitute using Shed-Tail for either Fluttermane so that it could break through a team with Moonblast, or Dragonite so it could set up Dragon Dance and do a ton of damage that way. Shed-Tail takes half of Orthworm's health each time it uses it, and will fail if Orthworm is below 50% HP, which is where Ting Lu comes in. Ting Lu not only mitigates Orthworm's base 55 special defense, but also restores its HP whenever it uses Earthquake or Bulldoze thanks to Earth Eater. This team also has Earthquake on Dragonite and Bulldoze on Gyarados for more Earth Eater spam and speed control. Orthworm matches up very well into opposing Ting Lu, who was very popular at the time. With Earth Eater, Orthworm is immune to Fissure and Stomping Tantrum and can threaten heavy damage with Iron Defense boosted Body Press. Orthworm managed to find a solid niche for itself with Ting Lu around, but I don't know if it'll ever come back without Ting Lu in this scene. It certainly didn't in Scarlet and Violet, but hey, maybe there's some future for it in Champions. Lastly, in Regulation C, Screamtail won another tournament. Piloted by Zachary Thornburg, Screamtail won the 2023 Kaguya Special Event. Screamtail saw significantly more usage in Regulation C than it did in Regulation B, especially at EUIC. However, its role on this team was slightly different. It used a brutal combination of Encore and Disable to force opposing Pokemon to struggle or switch, allowing its partner to easily clean up. Regulation D allowed Pokemon transferred in from Pokemon Home to be used. This included many competitive staples such as the Genies, Urshifu, and Rillaboom, as well as Pokemon from Legends Arceus. In Regulation D, there was only one Pokemon that I would call niche that ended up winning. Glimmora won the 2024 Curitiba Regional under Nadar Elbacha. Most of the time you see Glimmora, you imagine Power or Meteor Beam sets, but this was before Glimmora got Meteor Beam in the Indio Disc DLC. Instead, this Glimmora ran an Assault Vest set with Mortal Spin, Earth Power, Energy Ball, and Power Gem. Assault Vest Glimmora was actually standard set for it to run alongside Dondozo. Glimmora naturally deters physical attackers due to toxic debris, so you slap AV onto it to make it better into the special attacks that your opponent wants to use to get rid of it, giving it time to get off Mortal Spin and poison everything so Dondozo can clean up in the end game. And if your opponent wants to try to get rid of it quickly, they're going to end up with toxic debris on the field. In Regulations B and C, Glimmora was actually much more common, but it didn't manage to win until Regulation D, a format in which it saw hardly any use. It would become solid in Regulations F and H after it got Meteor Beam, but never managed to win in those formats. In Regulation E, new Pokemon from the Teal Mask DLC, as well as Pokemon from older generations that were added back into Scarlet and Violet, were introduced in competitive play. The most significant Pokemon were Ogerpon and Ursaluna Blood Moon, but out of the lesser Pokemon that were added back, Kommo-o won the 2024 Sacramento Regional under Michael Zhang. This Kommo-o was super bulky, running max HP and significant investment into both defenses. For offense, it ran Body Press, which could be boosted by Iron Defense, or Iron Head, which could be boosted by Steel Terra and Howl from Hisuian Arcanine. Though it seems counterintuitive, Kommo-o was actually built to counter Flutter Mane. Ordinarily, no matter how much bulk you give it, Flutter Mane will always have a way to OHKO Kommo-o, but with Steel Terra and its ability Bulletproof, Kommo-o all of a sudden resists Moonglass and Dazzling Gleam and is immune to Shadow Ball, leaving it free to pick up the KO with Iron Head. Kommo-o also won alongside Tyranitar, who in the grand scheme of things is not niche at all. It's one of the best Pokemon of all time, but really struggles to get usage whenever Urshifu is around. Tyranitar on this team matched up incredibly well into Psy-Spam teams, taking their coverage moves with Sand and Assault Vest and obliterating them back with Knockoff. It also ran Psychic Terra Terra Blast to help it handle common checks in Urshifu and Iron Hand. This T-Tar ran an unorthodox amount of speed so that it could combo with Iron Bundle's Icy Wind and pick up a surprise KO into Pokemon that would ordinarily expect to outspeed it when they're at -1. Regulation F introduced all Pokemon in the Indigo Disc, such as Archaludon, Raging Bolt, and Iron Crown. It also reintroduced important Pokemon like Whimsicott and Incineroar. Entei won the 2024 Portland Regional on Alex Underhill's team. Entei has for a long time now been just another legendary that can't really keep up with modern power levels. Entei in this format was not used as much as its new Paradox form Gouging Fire, but it has some tools that make it worth picking over Gouging Fire in the right circumstances. Its ability Inner Focus, which blocks Intimidate, Sacred Fire, which has a 50% chance to burn, and Extreme Speed, which is the strongest priority move in the game. With both Snarl and Sacred Fire, special attackers and physical attackers can be impeded by Entei, and its bulk makes it very difficult to remove while it has Assault Vest. Next up in Regulation F is a Pokemon that made quite a bit of a stir when it finally won a tournament, Articuno. Articuno won the 2024 Utrecht Special event using a set of all ice moves and choice specs with Terra Ice to boost the damage even more. Articuno was enabled by its Snow Setter, Alolan Ninetales, who would set up the Snow and Aurora Veil to make Articuno extremely bulky, then began blasting away blizzards of its own for chip damage. Alolan Ninetales was actually another niche Pokemon in Regulation F, so even though most eyes are on Articuno, for the context of this video, it makes more sense to consider them two tandem niche Pokemon that won together, taking advantage of a moment in the format that was very lenient towards raw ice type damage, because many ice weak Pokemon like Landorus, Raging Bolt, and Rillaboom were doing very well, and ice resists such as Urshifu Rapid and Gholdengo were seeing slightly less usage than normal. There is more here about Freeze Chance and Snow Cloak, though these are not central to the strategy. They are more bonuses that help move it along. It was more about taking advantage of specific metagame circumstances to blitz through teams with Blizzard. Galarian Zapdos won the 2026 Auckland Regionals under Yoav Ruvit. This Zapdos ran a Grassy Seed set with Acrobatics and Thunderous Kick for good fighting type damage and coaching to boost up its allies. Zapdos has the Defiant ability, which makes it very good into Intimidate, but also stat-dropping moves like Icy Wind, Electro Web, and especially Snarl. This team also features Ting Lu, who does not see nearly as much usage in Reg F as it did in Reg C. Ting Lu supports the team with Vestal of Ruin, reducing special damage, and this Ting Lu runs Terra Fairy Terra Blast to handle Urshifu and other fairy weak Pokemon in the meta. Lastly, for Regulation F, Hisuian Zoroark won the 2026 Sydney Regional on a hyper offense team by Drew Bliss. Its main role was to surprise KO Flutter Mane with Life Orb Shadow Ball, but could also use Hyper Voice to get enough chip damage to let Pokemon like Urshifu, King Gambit, or Regidrago clean up the game. And I did say Regidrago because that is a part of this winning team. I'm not exactly sure if it counts as niche because it has picked up in usage recently, but it probably still is, so I'll talk about it. Regidrago uses Dragon's Maw and either Life Orb or Dragon Fang to drop very powerful Dracos and Dragon Energies onto the opposing Pokemon and hopes to just overwhelm them with Dragon type damage. This one in particular ran Dragon Fang with Draco Meteor, Dragon Energy, and Earth Power, as well as Protect. Regulation G gave us our first restricted format in Scarlet and Violet, allowing players to use one powerful legendary on their team, such as Miraidon, Kyogre, or Zamazenta. It may seem like the increased power level would make it difficult for these weak Pokemon to keep up, but sometimes these legendaries need a very specific role on a team field and can't get it from anywhere else. Latios won 2024 Stockholm Regionals on a Zamazenta team by Michael Kelch. Back in Gen 5, Latios was extremely good, one of the best Pokemon of the era, but has struggled ever since the introduction of the Fairy type, and because of Levitate, it hasn't been able to take advantage of Psychic Terrain. In Scarlet and Violet, Latios received a significant buff to Luster Purge, increasing its base power from 70 to 95. Combined with its 50% chance to drop special defense, Luster Purge has a real chance to 2-hit KO most Pokemon that don't resist it, and if they do resist it, one drop will put them into Draco Meteor range. This team also featured Galarian Moltres, who was really good in its debut generation, but struggled to get usage in Generation 9. Moltres was on this team to handle both forms of Calyrex, threatening it with either Foul Play or Fiery Wrath. Fiery Wrath is also just a very spammable move that can really disrupt the opponent with flinches. Mienshao won the 2024 Bologna Special Event with Calyrex Shadow Rider as its restricted legendary on a team piloted by Ruben Giancini. Mienshao helps Calyrex with the dark types that give it so much trouble. Specifically, this Pokemon seems made in a lab to handle Incineroar. Mienshao can reliably OHKO Incin unless Incin is basically max defense. Also, Adamant Mienshao with no speed EVs outspeeds Jolly 252 Incin by 2 points. And Mienshao has Inner Focus, which blocks both Intimidate and flinches from Fake Out. Mienshao wasn't on this team only for the Incin matchup though. It also has Wide Guard to defend against spread moves from opposing Calyrex or Groudon and other such Pokemon, and it runs Feint to break through Protect. Feint also doesn't do that much damage, which doesn't seem good, but actually is, because you want it to do just enough damage to break Protect and maybe Focus Sash, but then let Calyrex get the KOs and get the boost. To top it all off, it has Fake Out. It makes me happy to see Mienshao win something, especially in a format with all these legendaries. Gothitelle and Screamtail quite famously won EUIC 2025 on a Koraidon team under Wolf Glick. Both of these Pokemon work together to create a Perish Trap mode for the team to help Koraidon out against Calyrex Ice Rider. Screamtail sets up the Perish Song, and Gothitelle keeps everyone trapped on the field with Shadow Tag. This Screamtail is a combination of the Perish Setter and Disruptive support sets I mentioned earlier. It has Protect, Encore, Disable, and Perish Song, so no attacking moves. Encore and Disable are brutal together next to Gothitelle, blocking opposing Pokemon into struggle and preventing them from switching out. Screamtail also saw more use in Regulation G than it did in either of the previous regulations it won a tournament in, so you might not consider it exactly niche because there were quite a few Terapagos teams that saw value in Screamtail. I don't know, it wasn't used that much. Let's move on. Torkoal won the 2025 Stockholm Regional, which was again won by Michael Kelch. Torkoal is considered to be the strongest Sunsetter most of the time, but remember, this is Regulation G. 2 viable restricted Pokemon set up the Sun. There are other options. The reason this team opted for Torkoal is because it is not a dedicated Sun team. It is a Trick Room team featuring Calyrex Ice Rider. So Torkoal doesn't exist to set up the Sun to enable Sun abusers like Charizard or Jumpluff if you're familiar with those kind of Sun teams. It instead uses the Sun to boost the damage of its own Fire type attacks and also give a boost to Raging Bolt, though Bolt can operate without the Sun. Groudon and Koraidon wouldn't fit nearly as well as Trick Room restricteds compared to Cali Ice, so Torkoal was the pick. Brute Bonnet won the 2025 Atlanta Regional on a Koraidon team piloted by Daniel Yu. Brute Bonnet is a very good partner for Koraidon, though in a general sense it is not preferred over Amoonguss, because Amoonguss has a better defensive typing and has an ability that is less conditional than Photosynthesis. On Koraidon teams, however, Brute Bonnet is very physically bulky thanks to Photosynthesis and can use Spore and Rage Powder to heavily impede opposing teams. This Brute Bonnet was identical to the one that got second at Worlds on James Evans' team. The moves, Terra types, and items are all the same, though there may have been different EV spreads. Brute Bonnet also won World on Giovanni Siski's team, though now we're talking about Reg I, in which Brute Bonnet was on about as many teams as Ogerpon Fire, so I don't really think it's a niche in Reg I, but I thought I'd give it a shout out. Iron Crown was on the same Atlanta team that Brute Bonnet went on, and it did not see much usage in Reg G, but its signature move Tachyon Cutter could break a lot of Focus Sash Pokemon and help with matchups that Koraidon struggles with. Funny thing about this Brute Bonnet Iron Crown Koraidon team is that the second place finisher in Atlanta, Joey Woodring, was using the same team. Iron Crown also won the Monterey Regional on a Miraidon team run by Riley Factura. This team was actually a little interesting because it had Iron Crown with no Indeedee, so no size spam, which is a common way to run Iron Crown. It's Terra Ground, Iron Crown, and Discharge Miraidon, so Miraidon can just nuke the field and Iron Crown can clean up. Regulation G had quite a bit of niche winners, but the real gold mine is Regulation H, a format that removed all legendaries and paradox Pokemon from play. Starting off strong, Clefable won the 2025 Dortmund Regionals under David Miraglia. While Clefable is very much a staple of OU, the same cannot be said for VGC. Clefairy is widely considered to be better due to it having Friend Guard. However, Clefable has a much higher special attack stat for hitting targets with Moonblast and has an item slot open to run Citrus Berry. This Clefable ran the standard moves of Protect, Follow Me, and Moonblast, but instead of Life Dew or Heal Pulse, it ran Misty Terrain. Manual Misty Terrain is not only useful for overriding grassy terrain from Rillaboom or psychic terrain from Indeedee, it also protects Pokemon on the team other than Hydreigon from being hit with Spore from Amoonguss or any of the effects of Sneasler's Dire Claw. One of the drawbacks of terrain is that your opponents will also gain the benefits of the terrain. However, when going up against Ursaluna, this can be a benefit, preventing Ursaluna from getting burned and activating Guts. This team features two Dragon types, Garchomp and Hydreigon, and at first glance this seems to have anti-synergy with Misty Terrain as it reduces the damage of Dragon-type moves. However, the most common Dragon type in Reg H is Dragonite, who is not protected by the terrain due to its flying typing. Meanwhile, Garchomp will take half damage from Scale Shot. It's not completely immune to this because if Hydreigon wants to use Draco Meteor into something or Garchomp wants to use Dragon Claw into something that's on the ground, then it will have reduced damage. On this team, Clefable uses Bulk, Redirection, and the tech of Misty Terrain to keep its allies safe. This same Clefable set also won the Lima special event under Sebastian Rodriguez, this time alongside Flamigo. This Flamigo ran a set of Close Combat, Dual Wing Beat, Wide Guard, Detect, and Focus Sash with Terra Stellar for bonus damage. While Flamigo does have access to Brave Bird, which does significantly more damage than Dual Wing Beat and does not have a chance to miss, Dual Wing Beat allows Flamigo to break through Sash Pokemon, in particular Sneasler. Flamigo's ability Scrappy not only blocks Intimidate, but also allows Flamigo to hit Ghost types with Close Combat, which is good for Goldango, but also for Terra Ghost, as it is one of the most popular Terra types. Flamigo also won LAIC under Yuma Kinagawa, running Feint over Dual Wing Beat to break the Protect, and Terra Fighting, which serves the same purpose as Terra Stellar for bonus damage when the Pokemon only has Close Combat for damage. Wolfie used Politoed, Gothitelle, and Kingdra to win the 2025 Toronto Regional. For those of you who might not remember exactly, this is the Wolfie Cone Parish Trap team, which is also a Rain team this time. Politoed sets up Rain for Kingdra and Arcaludon, and would also set up Parish Song while Gothitelle would trap Pokemon in. Kingdra was picked over Basculegion, who was the go-to Swift Swim Pokemon in Regulation H, because Basculegion has inherent anti-synergy with Parish Trap. Kingdra in the Rain with damage boost from Life Orb and Terra Stellar can do a ton of damage with Weather Ball or Draco Meteor. Against Sun teams, Kingdra also helps quite a bit, as Fire-type Weather Ball can hurt Jumpluff and other Chlorophyll mons, and Kingdra quad resists Fire-type moves. If you thought it was wild that 3 lesser-used Pokemon won a regional at the same time in Regulation H, let me tell you a little something about Scyther, Sylveon, and Garganacl. These 3 won the 2026 Monterey Regional on Stefan Mott's team. Scyther was an extremely deliberate pick, which helped the team into Annihilate first and foremost, but also Sneasler and Indeedee, while importantly not losing other specific matchups like Sinistcha. Garchomp on this team uses Stealth Rock, Salt Cure, Recover, and Protect, as well as Moringa Berry, which increases special defense by 1 stage after taking a special attack. Once Moringa Berry is up, Garganacl now has the benefits of Assault Vest while also having Recover and base 130 defense, cutting off most angles of attack into it. Garganacl on this team doesn't act like a Stallmon like you might be familiar with it in singles. It is passive, but it more forces teams to commit a lot of attacks into it to be able to get rid of it, while its partner is able to just send attack onto the field. Sylveon is on the team to check block classes King Gambit, which commonly don't run steel moves. Stab, Pixelate, Hyper Voice also just hits super hard after Sylveon gets his Throat Spray activated. Lastly, in Reg H, we have Como-O once again winning a regional. It won the 2026 Lille Regional on a team piloted by Marco Silva. In this regulation, Como-O didn't have to worry about Flutter Mane, so it ran a very different set than the previous one. This Como-O ran Clanging Scales, Aura Sphere, Flamethrower, and Protect. After using Clanging Scales, Como-O would activate his Throat Spray, getting a +1 defense boost and firing off attacks into basically everything because Fire, Dragon, and Fighting coverage hits most types for neutral damage. The only relevant mon that resists all of these is Primarina. The last Como-O discussed was Bulletproof to be immune to Shadow Ball, but this Como-O was Overcoat to be immune to Spore and Rage Powder. Como-O is not a widely used Pokemon in Regulation H, but it's also a pseudo-legendary. You would expect it to have some good results every once in a while, but the Pokemon that really caught everyone's attention that weekend was Ribombee. Ribombee is one of this team's Tailwind setters, with the other being Dragonite, but this Ribombee ran a Whimsicott set with Protect, Tailwind, Fake Tears, and Moonblast. So why not Whimsicott, who has all of these tools, but also Prankster, which makes everything easier to set up? Well, the issue with Prankster is that it does not work into fighting types, Farigiraf, or when Psychic Terrain is up. Ribombee has base 124 speed, which is very fast, especially in Regulation H, so it still gets these moves off fairly reliably, while also not being impeded by all the counterplay that Prankster has. Additionally, Ribombee has the ability Shield Dust, which is an ability that functions as a built-in Covert Cloak, so it can effectively run Covert Cloak and Focus Sash, which are two of the best items on Whimsicott at the same time. Lastly, in Regulation I, Scarlet and Violet's double restricted format, Basculegion won the 2025 Portland Regional under Gavin Michaels, who was the first player I highlighted in this video. Basculegion on this team takes advantage of the rain from Kyogre to outspeed many troublesome Mons and deal strong damage with either Wave Crash or Last Respects, helping out Kyogre's matchup into opposing restricted such as Zamazenta, Rhydon, or Koraidon. That is every niche Pokemon that won a tournament in Scarlet and Violet. As of recording this video, we are 3 days away from the Pokemon Day live stream, in which I assume we are going to get some very solid news on Pokemon champions. So this video is meant to be a bit of a preemptive goodbye to Scarlet and Violet. I love seeing interesting techs and underused Pokemon and all that sort of stuff, though I'm very much not a win with your favorites kind of guy. So this video was basically me going through and looking at all the strange and unorthodox Pokemon that managed to win, because I am assuming that Scarlet and Violet VGC is gonna be coming to a close definitely by the end of the year, probably significantly before Worlds. Scarlet and Violet is not the generation in which I got into competitive. I started watching competitive in Sun and Moon, but I didn't play until this generation. I think more importantly for me specifically, it's the generation in which I got into content creation for Pokemon. I started on Instagram, had like a moderate amount of success over there, and then moved on to YouTube, in which I am so happy with the success that I had. As of this morning, I hit 3,800 subscribers, and I'm coming up on surpassing my Instagram, on which I have like 4,200 followers at the time we're recording this. Both are very incredible achievements to me. I really didn't think I would get this far, so thank you very much for being here and watching or subscribing or anything like that. But yeah, okay, now classic YouTube outro stuff. I would really appreciate if you would subscribe. I'm trying to hit 10K this year, which seems like a bit of a lofty goal. And also check out whatever video is on screen. I'm gonna let editing me figure out which one it is, but it's a good video, trust. All right, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in your future games and have a good one.